those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Welcome. Pushing the limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Very busy news day. There's a lot going on. A very old and senile man is still holding a press conference now. He's been rambling and bumbling for like an hour. You listen to it, and if you were just a regular everyday person who didn't know he was the president, you would think he probably belongs in an old person's home, and he needs to be on medication. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, former U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of Texas, Michael Wynn, will be joining us to talk about the future of Maduro and whether he thinks there's going to be a conviction or not. Certainly a lot to get to, including this mumbling and bumbling Donald Trump presser, which we will get to. But joining us right now on the show, he's becoming too big for me now. He's too big of a celebrity for me now. True. Of course, is David Pollack from the David Pollack Show, but he also is guest hosting on OAN, and I've done his show, and I'm sure I'll be on again soon. And I want to have a good spirited debate with David about ICE and what's going on in Minneapolis. It's good to see you, David. How are you?
It's good to see you too. Hopefully you can hear me. I forgot my AirPods today, so I'm
doing this just through. Loud and clear, my friend. Yeah.
When you said that there was an old man doing a press conference, I was like, why is Joe Biden doing a press conference?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I absolutely knew. All right, so David, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
I've been very consistent, even though we probably disagree on what took place in Minneapolis with Renee Good and Officer Jonathan Ross. Even though we might disagree, I've been agreeing with a lot of MAGA Republicans on this, in that they agree that there should be an independent investigation. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, who's going to do the independent investigation? As far as I'm concerned, ICE and law enforcement has their own internal bureaus of affairs that allows them to investigate any of these incidents. And I think they've already made it clear that they believe that this was a justified self-defense action undertaken by that ICE agent. So I don't know what any other investigations would do. I don't think there needs to be an independent investigation separate from what internally the agency is already doing. This isn't any different than any other officer-involved shooting. And that's the important part here. I know there's a high-profile nature surrounding this, but it's no different than the officer-involved shooting in Oregon, which happened a couple of weeks later, or the officer-involved shooting that happened in Minnesota just a few days ago when the ICE agent was attacked with a broom handle and an ice pick while trying to apprehend a Venezuelan foreign national. So at the end of the day, we can't just use the political influence to decide that we're going to investigate certain officer-involved shootings. I don't think that's necessary, to be honest with you.
So you're comfortable with Kristi Noem an hour after the shooting, before she even knew the name of the person that was killed, calling her a domestic terrorist and already making their decision? You're comfortable with Donald Trump and Vance when there has been little to no investigation at all? There certainly have been no ballistics. There hasn't been an autopsy conducted. They haven't interviewed witnesses, and the officers made millions of dollars in donations. That's another story. But you're comfortable with no real investigation here? Because let's be honest, there hasn't been a real investigation. They made up their mind an hour after the shooting, calling her a domestic terrorist. You're okay with that?
I mean, just as Tim Walz and just as Mayor Fry and just as many Democrats made up their mind right after the shooting that this individual was murdered.
Which is why we need an investigation.
No, I don't think we do. No, I don't think we do. I mean, we have the video. We can see clearly that Renee Good was detained. The officer asked her to get out of the vehicle. He reached his hand into the vehicle, not the officer that fired his weapon. The other officer reached his hand into the vehicle, attempted to open the door and stop her from driving away. She decided to accelerate towards the other officer that was standing in front of the car, and as a result, he used deadly force. If this wasn't an ICE agent, if this was a police officer in a neighborhood conducting a traffic stop, nobody even for a second would question this. And you know what the procedure would be if this was a regular police officer in a regular neighborhood? There would be an internal investigation, and they would conclude with whether or not the officer acted appropriately, which is exactly what Homeland Security is doing here. So I don't think anything special needs to happen here.
If there was an investigation with police officer, they wouldn't have come up with a conclusion in their little investigation.
Everybody jumped to conclusions after the incident.
Okay, but
everybody jumped to conclusions.
But you can't have everybody is not the people that are supposed to be conducting a thorough investigation.
No, but what you're assuming is, Brian, you're assuming that because Kristi Noem was quick to defend the officer, just as Mayor Fry was quick to blame the officer, you're assuming that there was no internal investigation done of this shooting. You don't know that there wasn't.
Okay, so tell me, was there an autopsy done? Did they show bruising of Officer Jonathan Ross? Were there ballistics? The second shot, the third shot on the side of the vehicle? No, of course not, because that takes weeks.
ICE released information showing that the officer had to be treated for his injuries after he was struck with the vehicle.
And all I have is two unnamed sources from CBS. Can you provide me any pictures or the hospital or the doctors that worked on this guy?
Why are you entitled to it? I don't understand. There's officer-involved shootings happening all over the country all the time.
I'll tell you why.
Job. Why does this case require all of this extra burden of proof when clearly, and there was a million witnesses to see that he was defending himself legitimately?
Okay, so there's also millions of Americans that disagree with you that have seen the same videos that you've seen, and we can go through the protocols of the things that he did wrong. Let me ask you a question, David, since we want to talk about what happened there. Can you tell me where in the handbook of training law enforcement it says when you have the opportunity to interact with the individual, when Renee Good said, "I'm not mad at you," where does it say in the handbook that you're supposed to be walking with a cell phone in one hand behind the vehicle and then in front of the vehicle? Where does it say in the handbook that after a shooting, you don't even check your pulse?
The handbook? I've never read the handbook. I'm not a law enforcement officer, but what I can tell you, what I can tell you is I have read a lot of law pertaining to self-defense. And in this instance,
that's not what I asked.
It doesn't matter what the manual said for an ICE agent, what he's supposed to do in this situation. The only thing that matters is what a reasonable officer would have done in the same situation. That is the standard. The standard is, did he have a reasonable belief that he was in danger, or not just him? The public was in danger. There's several Supreme Court cases that have sided with law enforcement when they use deadly force on a fleeing vehicle if they believe that that vehicle posed a threat to the community. In this instance, you had a woman who was frantically honking on her horn for 5 minutes. When they tried to apprehend her, she fled. At that moment, she struck an officer. He was justified to use deadly force. And then for the people who said, well, he kept shooting after she drove by, the officer had the reasonable belief, and it seemed very apparent from the situation, that the officer had the reasonable belief that she was going to continue to endanger the community, or maybe even turn around with greater speed and ram the officers. That is for a fact finder to decide, and an internal investigation's determined it.
Exactly. And first of all, I think that's absolutely insane that you're justifying shooting multiple times at her face.
I think it's insane that you're justifying the actions of Renee Good.
So first of all, whether I believe Renee Good should or shouldn't have gotten out of the car, what I am trying to explain to you is the basic protocols of training that you're not listening to me. You keep going back to the self-defense claim, which, by the way, I'm happy to argue that with you, because in many of the videos, including the New York Times that broke this down, she's clearly turning her vehicle to the right. And no, I think it's absolute BS.
She hit the officer.
Internal bleeding.
She hit the officer.
Really?
She hit the officer with a car.
Got you. So when the officer is still on his, I don't think any of this is funny. We have an innocent 37-year-old woman.
I'm laughing because you're looking at a video and you're suspending common sense just so it fits a narrative.
No, it's not a narrative. There needs to be an independent investigation, which you disagree with.
There doesn't need to be an independent investigation.
So you don't think there should be
one? So you doesn't need to be.
So when a woman is dead. When a woman is dead, and America is very split on this shooting.
No, America is only split on this because the fake news and irresponsible Democratic rhetoric is convincing that the Americans, convincing the American people that this officer wasn't justified in his use of force. And that is completely wrong. The media is dishonestly covering this. This murder narrative is false. Democrat politicians like Tim Walz and Mayor Fry are being irresponsible with their rhetoric. This woman is dead, sadly, because of her own actions.
Let me ask you
no other reason.
Let's see if you're consistent with that when you talk about rhetoric. Are you okay with Kristi Noem an hour after the shooting calling Renee Good?
With Mayor Fry saying she was murdered?
I'll answer your question second, but I'm asking you first.
Yeah.
Are you okay with the rhetoric of Kristi Noem an hour after the shooting, calling her a domestic terrorist without even knowing her name, claiming that they were helping someone get their car out of the snow?
She was acting like a domestic terrorist. And you know what?
Ridiculous.
Just as Mayor Fry called the police officer, the innocent police officer that was doing his job when he was struck by her vehicle, he called him a murderer.
Who
So
said
which
that?
is worse?
Who said that?
Christy Nome
Who said that?
identifying the behaviors of an individual,
Who
or
called
the
him a
mayor
murderer?
of the city calling the man a murderer,
No,
and
he
then
didn't.
in the weeks after, look at the violence in his
No.
city as a
Oh, wait,
result
hold
of
on.
it.
Frey called officer a murderer?
Yes. He said he murdered her. He said he murdered Renee Good. That was his language. And then
I
he
don't.
told ICE to get
I
the
don't.
F out of his city,
Okay,
is
yeah,
what he
he
said.
did say that. I don't remember him saying
No,
that
he
Officer
said
Rock was
Renee
a
Good
murderer.
was murdered. Go pull the tape.
Well,
He
here's the
said she was
deal.
murdered.
Here's the fundamental difference here,
Yeah.
and I find it mesmerizing. As you know, an hour after the shooting, there hasn't been any investigation. There haven't been ballistics, autopsy,
know?
you name it.
How
Okay,
do you know?
so hold on. You're telling me an hour after the shooting,
Mhm.
in an hour, they were able to do ballistics? They were able to come on.
Ballistics?
David, that's not
You don't
serious.
need ballistics. The officer fired the
When
weapon.
there is an investigation into an officer involved shooting, part of that investigation are the
Yeah.
angles of the shots, how many shots were fired. Within an hour of the shooting, nobody knows for sure how many shots were fired, what words were exchanged, what led up to it.
We're going in circles.
Well, no, we're not going in circles. It's a fact of you're not consistent, David. I'm sorry.
I'm
With
completely
respect, you're not consistent. No, you're not. You're saying that you're okay with Christy Noem an hour after the shooting,
Yes.
calling this woman a terrorist, and
Are
yet
you okay with are you okay with Democrat leaders saying she was murdered? Yes or no?
I'm okay with an independent investigation. Now, listen.
Okay, but are
if
you
we are
okay
consistent-
with Democrats suggesting that she was murdered? Yes or no?
Okay, so Frey, you're saying that Frey called Jonathan Ross a murderer, right? I haven't heard
that Renee Good was murdered.
Okay, I haven't heard that. But when you say Democrats,
if it's not Mayor,
and
I'm pretty sure it was Mayor Fry. If it's not Mayor Fry, it was one of them said that she was murdered. I would have to go and find the tape.
So one of them, meaning you have one Democrat that is claiming that this
several
is murder.
Democrats. This has become the narrative on the left. They're all saying she was murdered. A lot of them.
Well, I think it was murder, and I can give you reasons why.
And then I think it was domestic terror. What are we saying? What are we talking about next?
Okay, so if you think it's domestic terror, I think it's murder. America is very divided on this issue.
Yes, we are.
I'm not comfortable with a 2-day alleged investigation. What I want is an independent investigation.
You're not going to get one.
No, because Donald Trump and his entire administration are corrupt and they're thugs. But you guys want an investigation into the whole church thing. You guys want an investigation into Don Lemon. You want him thrown in jail. But when a woman is killed, oh no, nothing to see here, folks. It was self-defense.
I think the internal investigation that is normally conducted with respect to officer-involved shootings is sufficient in this case. No special investigation is necessary. There's nothing special about this case other than the fact that Democrats want to make this a rallying cry to have mobs rush the streets to influence the 2026 election. I don't think this deserves a special investigation. No.
This has nothing to do with the 2026 election.
It has everything to do with the 2026 election.
Okay, well,
it's just like Black Lives Matter. It's just like all these other issues that they make an issue going into the election.
You think protesters
Democrats
are out there?
Crisis agents, and they're just using another crisis.
Have you talked to any protester in Minneapolis? Have you had discussions with any of them?
I haven't spoken to them personally,
but
I have spent hours reviewing videos of journalists speaking to the protesters. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think Nick Sorter is a journalist, and I don't think some of the people.
Nick Sorter.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Nick Sorter, standing out.
His name is Sorter.
Well, whatever his name is, I think he's a clown. Him standing outside of Tim Walz's home using the R word. I can't use the word on the radio. Do you think that's a respected journalist, somebody that would hang outside of a governor's mansion? And by the way, Tim Walz's son is a special needs son. Do you think that's a respect? Do you think that's a journalist? That's what a journalist would do?
Nick does what Nick does, and he's effective in what he does, and how he does it
is his business.
Effective? I think Nick Sorter is one of the most effective independent journalists I've had the privilege of knowing. He puts himself in dangerous situations.
Okay, so help me.
Yes, I think he's effective. Absolutely.
So calling Tim Walz
his methods might be unconventional, but he gets the story. Listen, I got to do a show.
Okay. I know you have to do a show, and I appreciate you coming on. I just wish we could come to a consensus of consistency. If you guys want an investigation,
I'm consistent. You just don't like what I'm consistent about, bro.
No, you're not consistent.
Yes, I am.
If you want an investigation into these people that went into this church and protest, by the way, nobody was injured or killed, but yet you don't want a full investigation into a 37-year-old woman that I believe is innocent that was shot in the face.
You think she's innocent?
Yep.
She was just walking her dog, and an ICE agent walked up.
Misdemeanor. At worst case scenario, maybe she was committing a misdemeanor. You think she was deserved to be killed?
A felony, driving your car towards a police officer or fleeing.
I don't
Even
condone.
Brian,
I don't
Brian,
condone.
even if she was fleeing, she was driving, right? The car wasn't standing still. Even if she was fleeing, that would be a felony. Both are felonies, not misdemeanors.
Let's just say that is a felony. Let's assume for a moment that she was committing a felony with no de-escalation techniques. She wasn't asked to get out of the car. He said, get the F out of the car, and they storming her vehicle.
Detained.
That's not de-escalation. That's not de-escalation. That's not
a felony.
Even if it is a felony, that doesn't necessarily mean that it justifies deadly force, but you're totally okay.
It does. The Supreme Court disagrees with you.
You're okay with the 1 hour.
Disagrees with you.
Well, the Supreme Court says you're okay with a 1 hour investigation. That's where we fundamentally disagree. You're totally okay. Yeah. You're totally okay with a 1 hour investigation.
No. You are suggesting it's a 1 hour investigation. I'm telling you that you're not privy to the internal investigation procedures at the Department of Homeland Security. You don't know what investigation.
How long does it take?
You want a special witch hunt to prosecute this guy, and it's not going to happen.
Never use that term. You have an autopsy. You have ballistics. There are things that people need to do.
You're not privy to that. This isn't a prosecution.
You're right. I'm not
privy to that.
But I know it doesn't take a day or two. It takes weeks or even months, David. And you're an attorney, and you know that they have not done any of that in the investigation.
You know about it. You don't know what they're doing. You're not privileged to that information. You're making conclusions.
Can you find ballistics and an autopsy results in a day or two?
I don't know what they're
before
done.
her body's getting cold.
Either, Brian. You're drawing conclusions based on what you think is happening. Listen, I got to go do a show, man.
Okay. All right, David, I appreciate it. Before you do your show today, give out the information on what time as a guest host your show starts tonight.
So we're I don't know if your audience is going to go and watch, but but I would love them to. We do have these
When are we having this debate on your show? When are we having this debate on your show? That's what I want.
Soon. I had Joe Walsh on yesterday. We had a fun debate about this.
Oh, good. I like Joe.
We had a great conversation. We didn't agree, but we had a great conversation. I do invite the other opinions on my show, and we do have these debates on my air as well. And if you want to watch that, we are on 10 p.m. Eastern on OAN, One American News Network, and my show is Fine Point. So hopefully you'll come and join us there. And if you want to follow me on social media, at David Pollock USA, you can send all your hate comments there. And Brian, thank you so much for having me on as always.
Thanks for coming on, David. I look forward to continuing this conversation on your show.
Absolutely.
David, thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
David Pollock, everybody. Okay. I don't even know where to begin. I'm mesmerized. First of all, it is impossible for anybody that is reasonable to suggest within an hour of an officer-involved shooting that a woman in Renee Good is a domestic terrorist. It is impossible. And while I am not an investigator, I've covered a lot of officer-involved shootings for 10 years when I was a reporter. And I will tell you, it takes weeks, months in some situations to conduct a full investigation. This is not a open and shut case. This isn't the situation where somebody points a gun at somebody, officers say, put the gun down, the person doesn't, and then shoot them. That would be one thing. That is not what happened here. There's some people that say, well, she was driving her car at the officer. Obviously, I disagree with that. The car was turning. The officer wasn't in jeopardy. The officer put himself in that position. There's a lot of things that we would disagree on. But even with all that, ballistics, you need to find out every bullet that was fired, the angle of the shots. All that information takes more than a day. You need to conduct an autopsy. They called her a domestic terrorist before her body was even cold. Checking the vehicle, interviewing witnesses, examining every single video, every single witness, the gun, everything involved in this situation, what led up to it, what the ICE officers were doing hours before, what Renee Good was doing hours before, and the minutes leading up to it. Every single thing needs to be examined. That takes months to conduct an investigation. They determined it in an hour. And the same people that want these protesters in this church investigated, throw them in jail and lock away the key. Spoiler alert for you, Don Lemon is not going to jail. This is a joke. They're talking about the Ku Klux Klan Act. They're talking about the FACE Act. This is an effing joke. But they want a full investigation because, God forbid, your church service is interrupted. They want a full investigation. Nobody was injured. Nobody was killed. There was no physical confrontations. The worst thing that happened was a church service was interrupted. Oh, Jesus. Now, if they broke the FACE Act, which was, by the way, implemented not for that reason, it was so these bastards that storm into clinics where women are trying to get abortions and they're interfering in a woman's right to choose and their health. That's why the FACE Act was implemented in the first place. But if you want to investigate all those non-violent people, because let me be very clear in this church situation, those were non-violent people. But if you want a full investigation, right? And you want those people held to the highest extent of the law, but yet you don't want an investigation like David into the killing of Renee Good, then there's something wrong with you. Something wrong with what's going on in this country. And I'm going to point that out every single day. I want consistency. Yes, I don't want protesters following ICE agents, even though in most cases it's not against the law. It's your right to do so. I just don't think it's very smart because you're taking a risk and it's dangerous. You should be allowed to, and you should peacefully protest. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. Don't throw things at officers. Don't vandalize vehicles. Don't put yourself in a dangerous situation where something bad could happen to you. I don't want any of that to happen. But I'm not sure how anybody who is non-biased could say, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that that officer defended himself and that was a legal officer-involved shooting. I don't know how anybody could look at that video and say that. I've covered this ad nauseum. I've given you the reasons why I feel the way I feel, and it always ends the same way for me, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with me. Yes, I think it was murder. But regardless of whether you agree or disagree, there needs to be an independent investigation. And by the way, I wouldn't have had a problem after Ashley Babbitt was shot, which I absolutely think was justified. If there was an independent investigation there too, I wouldn't have had a problem with that. I want consistency on both sides of the aisle. Yes, I believe that officer was justified. Yes, there was an investigation internally. And by the way, the investigation didn't take 1 or 2 days. And right after that situation, Joe Biden wasn't calling Ashley Babbitt an hour later a domestic terrorist. Kristi Noem called Renee Good a domestic terrorist an hour after. If you don't like rhetoric or you don't like Democrats calling Officer Jonathan Ross a murderer, if you don't like that sort of thing, then you can't like what Kristi Noem said either, calling Renee Good a domestic terrorist. At that situation, worst case scenario, Renee Good was committing a misdemeanor in that situation. As she was driving away, you could make the argument that she was committing a felony. Okay, doesn't mean you have the right to use deadly force. And there is no justification for shot 2 and shot 3. And now we're learning shot 4, because now we're learning there were 4 shots, not 3 shots, on the side of the vehicle when the car had already passed Officer Jonathan Ross. And I understand people like David, they don't want to talk about the fact that he broke almost every single protocol in the book. De-escalation techniques. They didn't try to talk to her. They said, get the F out. They pulled on her door. Number 2, walking to the back of the car to the front of the car against every proper protocol and your training when you're in law enforcement. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have had a cell phone in your hand and a gun in the other. That is absurd. Right after the shooting, regardless of after what he called her, which is despicable in itself, didn't provide any life-saving care. None of the other ICE officers did either. They didn't even check her pulse. And he casually walks to his unmarked vehicle, not in pain, doesn't appear to be injured in any way, shape, or form, leaves the scene of his officer-involved shooting 1 minute after the shooting against all proper protocols and training, because this officer was not properly trained. I don't care if he was an officer for 50 years. He didn't have the proper training. He put himself in a very bad position, made little to no effort to get out of the way of the vehicle, and you could see Renee Good turning the vehicle as she accelerates, trying to get out of the way. I would imagine she was very scared. I would imagine she didn't know what to do. I would imagine she panicked. I'm not justifying her fleeing, but I am certainly not justifying Officer Jonathan Ross firing his weapon at least 4 times. And for anybody to say that an hour is long enough for a full investigation is insane. That is insane. Yes, and Don Lemon ain't going to jail, folks. Don Lemon was not protesting. Don Lemon wasn't breaking the law. If he hears that there's going to be a protest in a church, as a journalist, you're allowed to go there and film. That's exactly what Don Lemon was doing. He wasn't breaking the law. But this is par for the course for all you right-wing turds out there that have an opportunity to try to attack a gay black man. You guys are salivating at the mouth, aren't you? Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero for you, isn't he? These white supremacists like the McCloskeys, they're heroes for pointing their weapons at black people. These are people that talk at the Republican National Convention. But if you have a gay black man who simply takes out his cell phone and starts recording, you want him in jail. Give him the electric chair because you all are racist bigots. And you don't care that a 37-year-old mother was shot and killed. You don't want an investigation. You don't, nothing to see here, folks, nothing. But God forbid if you go into a church and you start saying, say her name, Renee Good, give them the electric chair. I am sick of you right-wing evangelicals, and Don Lemon was right. Many of you suffer from white supremacy syndrome. Many of you suffer from Trump fellatio syndrome, and I have had it with all of you. I don't care if your church service was interrupted. I don't care. You can go to church next week, but Renee Good's kids are now growing up without a mother. Church will be there next week. You can pray to God all you want. But Renee Good is dead. The number to call, actually, we will be taking calls here in a little bit. But coming up next, it's so crazy because of all this stuff that's going on in Minneapolis. And everything that's going on in the world with Donald Trump, and we'll get to his mumbling and bumbling press conference here in a few, we forget about Venezuela. This just happened. They kidnapped the president. Well, the former U.S. attorney of the Southern District of Texas is going to be joining us next. He tends to think that this Maduro stuff is not going to hold in a court of law. Very interesting stuff. So he'll be joining us next. We'll take some phone calls here in a little bit. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino. Just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
You are way too smart, way too talented, way too good to be where you are. You are meant to be making way more money, feel way hotter in your body, and having way more fun. Hi, I'm Nicole Mitchell, and I'm a life coach. I help you get hotter and richer. If that is what you're looking for, you can find me at NicoleMitchell.com. My name, Nicole, is with a K, NICOLE, MITCHELL.com. You can reach out to me on my website or on Instagram, and I will be happy to be in touch and figure out what you're looking for and how I can support you in getting there.
Here's the deal. The country's a mess, and America's youth is stuck at the center of a tug-of-war between propaganda, billionaires, and political clowns who think TikTok is a national security threat, yet can't open their own email. But the real threat that keeps them up at night isn't TikTok. It's the power of the youth vote, and that's what the Unfuck America Tour is after. We're traveling the country, hitting campuses and cities, exposing the right wing's playbook and calling out all the tricks they use to hook young people. We saw the youth vote shift in 2024, and if we don't reclaim that momentum now, we lose the future. Our future. We're not bankrolled by billionaires, corporations, or dark money. We're backed by regular people like you, who won't sit back while the rich strip this country for parts. We need you to help us stay on the road to push back against the misinformation machine. Click the link in the description or head over to unfuckamericatour.com to donate, because nobody else is coming to fix this mess.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, we were just covering the ice shooting in Minneapolis, and obviously I have some disagreements with on the shooting and the killing of Renee Good. But lost in this mess in Minneapolis is what took place in Venezuela. In my estimation, as I've talked about this before and covered it, it was a kidnapping of the president, Maduro. And by the way, I do not defend Maduro. I think he's a really bad guy. But at the same time, I believe this was about oil. But now the question arises with this indictment and Maduro sent back to New York. And I would imagine there will be a trial. And the question now arises as, well, what's going to happen to Maduro? Is he going to be convicted? Will there be some sort of plea deal? So we really don't know. And we really don't seem to get a lot of information from prosecutors in this case, exactly what is going to happen down the road with Maduro. And it's confusing to a lot of people. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring somebody on the show that maybe could share their expertise and tell us what's going on and what will be happening in the future. So the guy joining us on the program right now, his name is Michael J. Wynn. He's a former U.S. attorney of the Southern District of Texas and a founding partner of Gregor Arnie Wynn in Houston, Texas. And I appreciate you coming on the show, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Michael. I don't know if you have your camera on where we can do video because we're not showing video right now of you. Is there something we can do with your camera so we can get video of you if that's possible?
Well, that's a question. Let me do this.
Yep.
I've been having some difficulty. I'm going to switch to my phone if you don't mind.
Perfect. No problem. Yeah. Yep. Go ahead and do that, and we will start the interview. Yeah, go ahead, Michael. I appreciate it. So Michael's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. And again, the former U.S. attorney of the Southern District of Texas, and he's going to be explaining to us the charges and his opinions on whether he believes Maduro is actually going to be found guilty or not, which will be interesting. So I'm very curious and interested to get his opinions on that. And again, this is a story that seems to have kind of gone underneath the stuff that's been going on in Minneapolis and all the ICE stuff that's been going on there. And I think that's what's really, unfortunate about this. All right. I think we have Michael joining us right now. Michael, we can see you loud and clear now. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, the new computer's coming in 2 days. Things should be better by then.
You look good. You sound good. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. All right. Let me just start by saying this. It seems like this story with Maduro and what's going on in Venezuela has kind of taken second step to what's going on in Minneapolis. But I think it's a really important story to discuss. Let me ask you this to start with your legal expertise. Were you surprised at what this administration did in taking Maduro in, taking over Venezuela, I guess, and bringing him here and indicting him here in the United States? What were you thinking when this happened?
Look, it's not surprising that they did it, giving the lead-up events to it, but surprising how quickly and efficiently it was done. And you're correct. It has nothing to do with narco-terrorism. It is all about the oil. But be that as it may, it's about producing more oil, ultimate, a positive impact on our economy and certainly on the economy of Venezuela.
Is this dangerous, Michael? Because I feel like it's setting a precedent of if you're in another country, you can indict our president, invade our country, and some people use the term kidnap. I just feel like it's dangerous because it sets a dangerous precedent that other countries can do this. What are your thoughts on that legally?
Well, look, it is dangerous, but then again, it doesn't set a precedent. Countries have been doing this, and this country has been doing it for a very, very long time. What was shocking here is how it was done and the technological means that were employed. That's what is that's what gives all of us a little bit of fear and concern.
Sure. It's my understanding that you are not sure whether these charges will hold up in a court of law. Can you first talk to me a little bit about the charges, and then your opinions on how you think this is going to play out in the United States in a court of law.
Sure. First of all, I was an assistant U.S. attorney in charge of these kinds of cases, not the political U.S. attorney here. But that said, the charges relate to narco trafficking and conspiracy to launder the proceeds of drug trafficking, right? And it's really not one conspiracy that's alleged. There's about 5 or 6 different ones with about 6 or 7 different people, most of whom are unrelated except for Maduro and his wife. So A and B may have done something, A and D, and B and F, but it wasn't one consolidated conspiracy. So what you're going to have is what's called a bill of particulars to try to bust up a multiplicitous conspiracy count that's not going to hold together. That's going to tie this up in motion practice. A year, 2 years, by that time, Maduro will be irrelevant. That is, even if he's shipped back, he will have lost any type of popular, support he may have had. The country will look nothing like it does today, and it won't matter. So the narco trafficking charges are weak. Frankly, they're a pretext, and they're used because the charges that would apply, financial or foreign extortion, prevention, think FCPA bribery counts, do not carry with them, justification for military intervention.
Right.
So that's done that way.
And that's important, Michael, because, we're talking about taking a president of another country, bringing him in, indicting him. And now it sounds like what you're saying to me is you don't think this will hold up in a courtroom. So if he's found not guilty, it appears to me that Maduro's regime is still intact. At least they're still intact right now. And I agree with you. Yeah, he's not going to be the president again. I don't see that happening. But at the same time, doesn't it make us look bad? When I say us, I mean, Donald Trump and his administration. You go through all this, and you're right. We agree. It's about the oil. It's not about narco terrorism. We agree on that. But you bring him in here. Donald Trump talks a tough game about all the horrible things that this guy has done, and we need to, justice for all the people that he's killed with the drugs and everything. And then he doesn't get found guilty in a courtroom. If that doesn't happen, I just think it makes Donald Trump and it makes us as Americans look bad.
Well, look, first of all, this case isn't going to be tried or go to a jury during the Trump administration. It's going to be sometime after that. So that question isn't going to matter. The news cycle, as you rightly noted, has already shifted to Minneapolis, and it's going to shift somewhere else, maybe to Greenland. Yeah. And then we're going to forget all about this. All right. Last of all, I don't know who's paying attention, but Citgo, which is, the producing arm of PDVSA, the Venezuelan National Oil Company, was sold to an American vulture fund in November of 2025 as a distressed sale that was supervised by a person affiliated with a PAC that donated heavily to Donald Trump. It was sold at 1/3 of its listed price, and to effectuate that sale and get drilling going again and pay off all the debt, you had to remove Maduro, which is exactly what we did. So the appeals of that case are due in February, and the current Venezuelan administration is not going to pursue those vigorously in Delaware court. Judgment's going to stand. Mr. Singer, the U.S. capitalist or a hedge fund guy, is going to owe Citgo and is going to be able to exchange equity for debt. That's why we did what we did. Nothing to do with narco terrorism.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it would be nice if more people were transparent about it. But yeah, I agree with you. This is about oil. This is about money. There's no question about that. I know this is outside the realm of Venezuela, but I do want to ask you. I would imagine you must have some opinion on what is going on throughout this country right now, particularly what is going on in Minneapolis, right? What do you make of what's going on there? In particular, the ICE agents in Minneapolis, many of these agents, as I'm sure you've seen on video, going up to random people, asking them if they're from this country, asking them for paperwork, asking them for ID. Would you agree with me that there has to be reasonable or articulable suspicion that you've committed a crime in this country for a police officer in that situation to ask you for documentation? Can you shed some light on that?
Man, I wholly agree with you. What's going on there is extremely disturbing and shocking. It's very difficult, having been involved with several federal agencies that don't necessarily all get along with each other, and knowing people at high levels in Homeland Security. The whole thing is extremely troubling to me. How are you going to police that, right? And
Yeah.
some of those actions are completely inexcusable. Furthermore, people say get your papers, and they don't realize how arduous it is to navigate our immigration system as it currently exists.
Mhm.
30 years ago, that's one thing. Now, I couldn't tell you how to get your papers if I tried.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sincere.
appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Michael. And it's like, can you think about for a second the world we're living in today, or the country we're in today, right? Look at what's going on in Minneapolis. You look at this is the part that I really don't understand. You've been a part of a lot of different investigations in your career, right?
Right.
What do you make of, and again, in general terms here, I just want to pick your brain on this. An hour after this shooting of Renee Good, an hour after, you have Kristi Noem calling this woman a domestic terrorist. And as you know, an investigation takes a little longer than an hour or a day or 2 days, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Ballistics, interviewing witnesses, an autopsy, this could take weeks or even months. And it seems to me that they've made their mind up within hours after this shooting.
Look, it strains credibility, and I think it's detrimental to this administration's announced policies to set our immigration course protocols correct, have people follow those procedures and policies. Look, I've been down on the border this past year. The inflow of undocumented migrants has shrunk markedly. So let's declare victory on that and let folks who have been here for 15 years, started businesses, raised families, are an integral part of various pieces of our economy. You can say, well, go get your papers, or you should have gotten your papers before you had 7 kids here. Okay, you're right. You're right. But what's the best thing for us going forward? And it's not this. What's the best thing? Should we have done something different in the past? Probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, Michael, I think what you just said is extremely reasonable, right? And that's what we've lost in Washington, D.C. is people who are reasonable. I mean, I have to ask you this. If you were the attorney general right there in the state of Minnesota, did we just lose him, by the way? I think we just lost his video. Michael, are you there? I think we just lost Michael. I think we just lost his video. Hopefully we can get Michael to come back, because I wanted to ask him, if he was attorney general of Minnesota, what advice would he give to people in Minnesota? That was going to be my next question to Michael. But I don't know if is he there? Did we lose him? Okay. Well, if Michael comes back, that will be my next question to him. Would be, if he was the attorney general in Minnesota, what would he do? Right? What would he do next? I don't know if he's still there, if he's coming back, but if he does, I will certainly ask him that question. Again, if you're just joining us, Michael Wynn, he's the former U.S. attorney of the Southern District of Texas, and interesting statements that he's made. He doesn't believe that what Maduro has been charged with, he doesn't believe that the charges will hold up in a court of law. I find that to be very interesting. We also agree that this was about oil. This was all about oil, and this was about money, which obviously I disagree with him. I think we have Michael back now. Michael, sorry about that. I think we lost you there for a second, but you're back now. Can you hear me? Yes, I got you good, Michael. I just had a few more quick questions for you. I appreciate you coming back. I'm just curious, with your experience, if you're the attorney general of the state of Minnesota, or if you had the opportunity to give advice to a Tim Walz or the mayor, I'm curious, like, what advice would you give them? What can they do in this situation?
Man, I think you need to tone down the rhetoric. You're not going to beat the feds with rhetoric. I think you make a reasoned argument, to the Supreme Court, federal courts, to try to get some type of injunctive relief.
Uh-oh. Did we just lose Michael again? All right. Well, we just lost, unfortunately, we just lost Michael again on his phone. I really wanted to hear him finish that answer, but that's okay. I think I understand where Michael was going to that. Obviously there needs to be tone down of rhetoric on both sides, but I certainly agree with Michael. Should we give it one more try? All right, Michael, we lost you a little bit there, so I want to give you the
What's going on? But I'm here.
Okay, good. Well, let's start that over, Michael. What advice would you give to locals there? Tim Waltz, the mayor. Let's start over because we kind of lost you mid-sentence there. What advice would you give to them?
Look, I would maintain law and order, right? Otherwise, you're going to give an excuse to further the deployment of National Guard and other type of federal measures. You got to keep that in order and seek relief through the courts. U.S. Supreme Court is very reasonable on these types of issues. You got to go about doing it that way. Ask for expedited relief. Keep public calm. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster.
Do you think there should be an independent investigation into the officer-involved shooting of Renee Good? What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, there should be. Yeah, of course. But, here's the thing. Over time, this country gets involved in these prolonged investigation over things that are long ago. Now, I feel for her family. The whole thing is very, very troubling. Let's do it, but let's not have a political circus out of it. Let's find the truth. Shouldn't be too hard. Really shouldn't.
Couldn't agree with you more. Last question for you, Michael. Obviously, another big story that's been in the news is the FACE Act and what took place with Don Lemon in that church with a bunch of protesters. People on the right say they broke the FACE Act and they belong in jail, the Ku Klux Klan Act. There's a lot of different speculation about that. Can you give me your legal expertise on that? What do you think is going to happen? It's my understanding Don Lemon was not protesting, so I'm not sure what they can charge him with other than maybe trespassing. But what is your take on this whole situation? Because this has obviously been another big story.
Yeah, I'm really not at liberty to, go into that one, at this point. So I'm gonna take a pass on that.
Fair enough. Well, fair enough. Michael, I really do appreciate your time and your insight into certainly Maduro's case. We'll have to wait and see what happens, and we'd love to have you on again down the road, and I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Okay. Sorry about the tech problems.
Oh, you're good. No problem, Michael. I appreciate it. All right. That's Michael Wynn, everybody, former U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of Texas. He said some very interesting things there. He said that he doesn't believe the charges on Maduro will hold up in court. That's actually very interesting. He also agrees that, this was about oil. This was about money. And then I got his thoughts a little bit on Minneapolis. I agree with a lot of the stuff he said. I disagree with some of the stuff, but certainly interesting to get his insight, and I appreciate that. So as we've been monitoring this crazy press conference, Donald Trump mumbling for like 2 hours, it literally just ended. And this press conference started around 11 a.m. So he literally has been mumbling and bumbling for like 2 hours. This is a man that needs to be in an old person's home. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it like that. They talked about Joe Biden and he's in the bunker and, Joe Biden, his mental health. If you watched any of this press conference, this is a man that needs help. This is Donald Trump in the press conference earlier today when he was mumbling and bumbling and trying to go by the script, but he struggled with it very, very much. This is Donald Trump talking about how drug prices have been slashed 3, 4, 5, 600%. Listen to this.
No, it's 13 times. More than that even. But we secured most favored nations agreements to slash drug prices by as much as 300, 400, 500, and even 600%.
Yeah, so if it's 4, 5, 600%, which is what Donald Trump just said, then I guess I could go to the drugstore right now. And if if I'm picking something up and it's $25, does that mean that they owe me $200 or $300? Isn't that what a 5 or a 600%? It's so insane. The math is so ridiculous and it's so insane. But this man doesn't even understand what he is saying. He can't put two coherent sentences together. This is Donald Trump talking about some book that he brings up to the podium here, and he starts flipping through it. He calls it the Book of Accomplishments. Listen to this.
It's a lot of people. I think it's like a record. So these are accomplishments. We have a lot of accomplishments. And as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th. And it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished. But we've done more than any other administration has done by far in terms of military, in terms of ending wars, in terms of completing wars. Nobody's really seen very much like it. I think it's appropriate that.
By the way, if you want to purchase that book, The Book of Accomplishments, you can find it in the fiction section of Barnes & Noble if you'd like to buy that book. That's where you would find it. Insane. So this is even more insane. Donald Trump today has been bragging about the stock market. Meanwhile, where you can see it on television, on CNN and other networks, displaying the stock market that has plummeted and dropped today. And meanwhile, while that's going on, Donald Trump is bragging about the stock market. Folks, you can't make this up.
Actually, officially 12 months as of today. 52 all-time record highs. That means 401ks did great. I have people see me all the time, policemen that guard us really well, and got to know them a little bit. And they said, "Sir, you're making me look so good. My 401k is through the roof. My wife thinks I'm the greatest genius, that I'm a financial genius, like Warren Buffett."
Yeah, I'm sure that's what I'm sure that's how Melania feels about you. The woman who won't even sleep in the same bed as yours. She won't hold your hand. She doesn't want to be in the same zip code of you. Yeah, but I'm sure she thinks you're a genius, Mr. President. Oh, yes, I'm sure. Just like everybody in this country thinks that you're Mr. Genius, the orange turd, the 34-count felon, liable sexual abuser. Yes, sir, you're a genius, all right? You might be one of the dumbest people, literally one of the dumbest people in this country. And this is the part of the press conference that, again, went on for almost 2 hours, where he starts talking about our military, and he spent literally the first 15 minutes of this press conference, by the way, flipping through pictures and mumbling to himself. Honestly, folks, I've never seen anything like this before. Listen to this.
Individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished. But we've done more than any other administration has done by far in terms of military, in terms of ending wars, in terms of completing wars. Nobody's really seen very much like it.
Yeah, he keeps flipping through the pages. Here's another clip of him literally flipping through pages at a press conference, continuing to flip.
Here's the book. These are all things we have. I'm going to read a few of the samples, but look at this. These are all, each line is something that we did. Nobody did that before. And it's big stuff, too. Look, we have the hottest country in the world.
We have the hottest country in the world, and he flips through these pages. Just like the big book. Do you remember Kayleigh McEnany when they said they had a health care plan? Oh, yeah, 2 weeks away, a month away. Oh, look at that book. That's our new health care plan. That was like, what, 6 or 7 years ago? How did that work out? And Donald Trump still the only president in American history that has not conceded an election. And he went on about it today with the mumbling and bumbling press conference talking about a rigged election.
We have the worst president in the history of our country. A man that didn't win the election, by the way, it was a rigged election. Everybody knows that now. And by the way, numbers are coming out that show it even more plainly. We caught him. We caught him.
What is he talking about? You caught him doing what? Still says it was a rigged election. No evidence of widespread voter fraud. The man still can't concede that he lost. And in a press conference today, he still is talking about how upset he is about how now he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. He's still talking about his grievances about the 2020 election. And ladies and gentlemen, Jack Smith is going to be testifying here in a few days in public, and those charges are not going away. They're waiting until he leaves office, and I believe Donald Trump eventually will be prosecuted for the events that led up to January 6th. Here is the point where I say this all the time about Donald Trump. The man has no empathy. He has no moral compass. Regardless of what you think the officer, Jonathan Ross, in this situation did or didn't do, I want you to listen to Donald Trump today talking about, in this situation, the widow of Renee Good. Keep in mind, seconds after Renee Good was shot and killed, in the last moments of her life, her partner had to see it before her very eyes. And of course, her partner was freaking out, as I think anybody would. If you see a loved one being shot and killed by law enforcement, you would probably be freaking out as well. And just like they always do in the Trump administration, they called Renee Good a domestic terrorist. They've attacked her for being gay. The president of the United States is attacking her wife, calling her a professional opera singer for the things she was saying in the moments after Renee Good was shot and killed. Listen to this.
They're paid. You know, when the woman was shot, I felt terribly about that. And I understand both sides of it. But when she was shot, there was another woman that was screaming shame, 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 right? You saw it. So loud. Like a professional opera singer. She was so loud and so professional. She wasn't a woman that was hurt, like, oh, my heart's injured. She was a professional. She's shame, shame. She's screaming shame, shame. I said, that's not a normal person. That's a professional. These are professional agitators and professional people that want to see our country do badly. But that's not happening because we have the hottest country anywhere in the world, despite this stuff.
The hottest country anywhere in the world. I don't know where he's getting that from. When you look at our economy, when you look at inflation, when you look at unemployment, obviously that's a lie. We can go stat by stat and say that that's a lie. But number two, a professional insinuating that these are paid agitators. We've heard that from others on the right on Capitol Hill. Notice how they show no direct evidence that these are paid protesters. It's the same thing when Donald Trump says, I won the election in a landslide and it was rigged. No evidence of widespread voter fraud. Now they're claiming that all these protesters are paid protesters. Again, no evidence, no shred of evidence that that's true. But that's what they do, because they can't handle the fact that these are everyday normal Americans that are very upset at what ICE is doing and very upset at the Trump administration that are using their First Amendment rights to protest. And MAGA people on the right just can't handle it, because if they don't like the message and people are using their First Amendment rights and peacefully protesting, they go with they're the paid agitators. Again, we've heard this nonstop for years. They're paid by George Soros. These are paid agitators. We heard the same thing during the No Kings rallies, when there were literally over 10 million people that peacefully protested, not one arrest, peaceful protest around the country. And we heard the same from Donald Trump and his cronies' lies that these are paid protesters. I never got $1 from George Soros. I never got paid to show up at the No Kings rallies. These are blatant lies by the President of the United States. And his attacks on these protesters and the widow of Renee Good are despicable and disgusting. And it goes to show you what I say. We know that he's a liar. We know that he's a despicable human being, but the man has no moral compass, and he only cares about himself. And then there's the racist part of Donald Trump, which I also talk about on this show all the time. Going after Somalians, which, again, what these people on the right love to do. They love to go after brown people. They love to go after minorities. They love to go after people like Don Lemon, who happen to be African Americans that are gay. This is what they do. They attack Somalians for fraud. They attack Somalians. Donald Trump says they are low IQ people. Why doesn't he just say it out loud and call them racial slurs? Listen to this.
It's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, troublemakers, but they're paid agitators and insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job.
First of all, Somalia is a country, Mr. President. Second of all, I'd love to see your evidence where you claim all these people come to this country with no money and then they become rich. Where are you getting that from? You were born into this country rich. You're a silver spoon in your mouth, rich, entitled Orange Man. But you see, you're claiming that these Somalians come into this country, and it can't be possible that they're hard workers. It can't be possible that they get a job here and they work hard. That they come here and they're all fraudsters and they all become rich. Did you hear what he said about Somalian people? A lot, very low IQ people. You're taking an entire group of people and painting them as low IQ people because of where they come from. That is the actual definition of racism and bigotry. Well, let me be very clear, Mr. President. You're the dope. You're the low IQ guy. You're the guy who says you need ID to buy bread. You're the guy who says Jeb Bush got us into the war in Iraq. You're the guy who claims that you won an election over Barack Obama. You're the guy who talks about windmills 24/7. You're the guy who can't put two coherent sentences together. You mumble and you bumble every day. That's who you are, and you're not Somalian. That's who you are. No, sir. There are plenty of Somalians in this country that are very hardworking people, legal citizens from Somalia, who work really hard and want the American dream, and they fight for it. They weren't given a $500 million company from their daddy. They weren't given life on a silver platter. They worked for it. Now, there are people who commit fraud, all shapes and sizes and colors in the crayon box. But to make an assumption like that, that a large portion of Somalians are very low IQ people, is downright racism and bigotry, and you are despicable for it. And here's where Donald Trump talks about mentally insane killers. He says you can't even talk to them. Just in generic terms, talking about mentally insane killers. I think the mentally insane killer is the President of the United States, but here's what he had to say.
The drug dealers, the mentally insane. We have a lot of mentally insane killers. I mean, you can't even talk to them. It'd be nice if you could have a little reason, but you can't even reason. These are seriously ill people.
So if you really care about drug dealers, and you care about mentally ill and insane people, then my question to you, Mr. President, why did you pardon a former president who brought in 400 tons of drugs into this country? You claim he was treated unfairly because you had financial gain from him and his family. So don't preach to us about how you care about the cartels and you care about drugs and you care about fentanyl overdoses when you pardon people that are responsible for God knows how many drug overdoses in this country. This man has no moral compass. If you were listening to him speak and he wasn't Donald Trump, you would say he belongs in an old person's home and he needs help. He's a senile old man who needs help. But we're not just talking about some random older gentleman who is senile. We're talking about a scumbag and a liable sexual abuser and a 34-count felon and a guy who's cheated on every woman he's ever been with, who's sexualized his own daughter, who bragged about going into teenage girls' locker rooms, and who was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for over 10 years. Because make no mistake about it, the only thing in America that is safe under Donald Trump are the Epstein files. I do want to open up the phone lines at 702-221-7283. And again, that number is 702-221-7283. Before I do so, I don't know if you guys had a chance to catch the national championship game yesterday. It was certainly a lot of fun. And there's a lot of people that are sports betting these days. I'm certainly one of them. And I am so proud to be teamed up with the good people at mybookie.ag. And, you know, listen, same wallet, sports, casino, reloads, live bets. They have everything you need. But here's something special for my Pushing the Limits listeners. If you use the promo code LIMITS and you register at mybookie.ag, you will get a welcome bonus offer. And this is an offer that not many people are allowing you to do. Up to $500 if you place a bet and you lose, you will get a free bet refund up to $500. Here's what you do. Go to my Facebook page, Pushing the Limits. You look at the videos and you'll see you will have an actual link to click on where you can sign up. Use that link to click on, use the promo code LIMITS, and you'll get up to a $500 refund of your $500 bet and a free bet entered into your account. Check them out at my good friends, mybookie.ag. Before we get to the phone calls, I do want to go to the YouTube Super Chat because I know we have multiple YouTube Super Chats and people that that want to chime in and give their opinions. And by the way, I love the YouTube super chats that you guys have been putting here, particularly over the last couple days. Let's start off with Fallen. Fallen says the insincerity, sociopath, lying, and racism of these right-wing propagandists are disgusting. Obviously, Fallen, I agree with you 100%. Appreciate for your support and your donation. Let's go to Weldsman. Thank you for your $10 donation. He says, is there any video footage of a person driving past an officer when the officer is in the way to show what an actual officer should do in that situation? That's a really good point. We should use other officer-involved shootings as kind of a starting point to go from. I agree. Electric Dad, thank you for your support, says, if Jesus went into a church today and turned over the money tables of these grifters, I think I lost that one. We'll get back to it. Let's go to Terrence Jones. Terrence Jones, thank you for your $10 donation. Terrence Jones says, hey, Brian, thank you for all you do for the public of keeping us informed with truth and having the willpower to actually have the inner strength to have conversations with those maggot people. Well, I appreciate that, Terrence, and I appreciate your support. Obviously, it's not easy, and it takes a toll on my mental health sometimes. Going back to that electric comment, he says, if Jesus went into a church today and turned over the money tables of these grifters, the MAGA buffoons would want him out in prison. I completely agree with you, Electric. Anybody else that wants to join us in the YouTube Super Chat, please do so, and we will read your comments on the air. As I mentioned, there's a couple topics, obviously, that we are talking about today. We had David Pollack on from OAN, who thinks that apparently a 1-hour investigation into the shooting of Renee Good is sufficient. I am mesmerized. I am blown away. I can't believe that. I want to get your thoughts on that. Donald Trump's press conference earlier today, a mumbling and stumbling and bumbling old senile man that is very ill and needs help. Want to get your thoughts on that as well. And then what is going on in Minneapolis? Okay, hear me out on this. I have a solution. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want to get your thoughts on this too. Here is my solution that I think would temporarily solve the problem in Minneapolis. Tim Walz and Mayor Frey have a meeting with Kristi Noem and say, okay, you guys want to go into our jails. Go ahead. We'll give you access to our jails and deport violent criminals. Fine, we'll give you that access, but get your damn ICE officers off the streets. We need a cooling down period. Get these 2,000 officers out of here so things can calm down. Right now, that would be my temporary solution. I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think the Trump administration wants to work with the governor or Mayor Frey in any way, shape, or form. But that would be my temporary solution. Number to call, by the way, if you want to be a part of the conversation, is 702-221-7283. And again, that number, 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Why don't we start off with Brett? Are we not starting off with Brett? Okay, so 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Again, if you want to be a part of the conversation. Who do we go to first? Okay, yeah, we're going to go to Brett. Brett is first up on PTL. Hey, Brett, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Brian? How are you today?
Good. What's on your mind today, Brett?
Well, the same old shit, man. I just I enjoyed the interaction with that clown earlier. It was a really good job with him. But they all just gaslight, lie, and it's just ridiculous that they see absolutely opposite of what we see. Do you think that they really believe that?
Is your question, do you think that they really believe the stuff they say? Is that what you're asking?
What? No, with Megan Good. Do you think that they actually believe it, or they're just pushing the narrative?
I think that's a good question, actually. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I think that some of these people believe what they say. I think some people are so caught in their hatred and bigotry, I don't think maybe they care. But I think it's kind of split up half and half, if that makes sense. I think some people actually believe what they say, and I think others actually don't believe what they say, but they'll just go along with Donald Trump no matter what his policies are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I think that they convince themselves that they're, to see what they need or want to see in these situations. But I just absolutely. How can you say that she drove into him when the girl is smiling and she's happy? And you mentioned earlier that you thought that she was in fear. I really don't even believe that, because I think that I really don't believe that she had any idea what was coming. I think that she just thought she was just going to drive through there and because people were yelling all kinds of stuff. Get out of the way, drive, don't drive, or girls telling her to drive. Like, I think that she had no idea what was coming. I don't think she really expected any of it. And I don't think she was in fear because, technically there shouldn't be any reason to fear law enforcement in America when you're an American citizen. Do you agree?
Yeah, I, to an extent, I do agree. And I appreciate the call, by the way, Brett. This is a very sad circumstance, and we're going to have more circumstances like this so long as ICE continue to terrorize your local community, in this case, Minneapolis. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have Ryan on the line. We have Jerry, Luke, Dennis. A couple phone lines open at 702-221-7283. We're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back in 90 seconds, we'll be taking more of your calls. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
You are way too smart, way too talented, way too good to be where you are. You are meant to be making way more money, feel way hotter in your body, and having way more fun. Hi, I'm Nicole Mitchell, and I'm a life coach. I help you get hotter and richer. If that is what you're looking for, you can find me at NicoleMitchell.com. My name, Nicole, is with a K, NICOLE, You can reach out to me on my website or on Instagram, and I will be happy to be in touch and figure out what you're looking for and how I can support you in getting there.
Here's the deal. The country's a mess, and America's youth is stuck at the center of a tug-of-war between propaganda, billionaires, and political clowns who think TikTok is a national security threat, yet can't open their own email. But the real threat that keeps them up at night isn't TikTok. It's the power of the youth vote, and that's what the Unfuck America tour is after. We're traveling the country, hitting campuses and cities, exposing the right wing's playbook and calling out all the tricks they use to hook young people. We saw the youth vote shift in 2024, and if we don't reclaim that momentum now, we lose the future, our future. We're not bankrolled by billionaires, corporations, or dark money. We're backed by regular people like you, who won't sit back while the rich strip this country for parts. We need you to help us stay on the road to push back against the misinformation machine. Click the link in the description or head over to unfuckamericatour.com to donate, because nobody else is coming to fix this mess.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. A number of different topics that we are talking about today. Obviously, the Renee Good shooting and the fact that they pretty much conducted an investigation in like an hour, calling her a domestic terrorist. And there is going to be no full investigation into this, which is disgusting. We're talking about the church protest, and a lot of people think they should be locking up Don Lemon and throwing away the key, which I think is absolutely absurd. We are certainly covering that as well. And we had David Pollack from OAN on, who's totally fine with a 1-hour investigation. Donald Trump holding a mumbling, bumbling press conference today that lasted almost 2 hours. And I don't even know where to begin in that. We played some of the audio cuts. It's insane. Absolutely insane. All right, number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. And again, that number is 702-221-SAVE. Why don't we start off with Dennis here in this segment. Hello, Dennis. What's going on?
Hey, a couple of different things I wanted to talk to you about. I watched part of the Trump on today. Man, I got so confused I didn't know where I was.
Yeah, I think the person that was even more confused than you was him. I mean, when he is off script, can you find me somebody that is more incoherent and can't put sentences together than this guy?
I'm telling you, I mean, he was just babbling on and on and on and on. I was waiting for you to come on. So I listened to him, and I finally said, forget it. I can't handle it no more.
That guy's sick. He's mentally ill. He's sick, and he's losing it by the day.
Yes. I agree with you 100%.
I live in Seattle.
Yeah.
But I'm from one of your favorite cities, Seattle.
Oh, jeez, don't say that. The city where you never get sunshine. They say it's I don't know. I did work in Seattle for a little. Listen, there's a lot of nice people that live in Seattle. It's very beautiful.
You know what? It's 40 degrees, but there's blue skies everywhere here today.
40 degrees, and it usually rains, and it's cold. But you know what? I worked there.
Yeah.
I always have a small place in my heart for Seattle, but you won't see me going back there anytime soon, unfortunately. But thank you for the call, my friend.
I was born and raised here, so I'm kind of used to it.
No, I get it. I get it. Well, listen, I appreciate your call, my friend, and
I wanted to say something about ICE. How come they aren't going into Compton or Watts or any of the bad places? I mean, I thought the Black Panthers talking the other day, and they said that they won't go in there because they know what will happen.
I even think a bigger question would be, why are they not going into the states that have the most undocumented immigrants, like Texas, for example, or Florida? Notice how they're not going into states that are run by Republican governors with more undocumented immigrants than Minnesota, but they want to terrorize communities that are run by Democrats. I certainly find that very interesting. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry is up next on Pushing the Limits. What's up, Jerry?
Hey, what's up, Brian? How are things with you, bud?
Good. What's on your mind today, Jerry?
All right, short and sweet, because I'm on my way on 95. I honestly think this little ballroom he's talking about, Trump, I don't even think it ever's going to touch the surface. I think he just did that just to do it and do whatever he wants to, just like I don't think he's ever going to put a black sanctuary that he talked about last February during Black History Month. And lastly, Ross will get charged. That's just my opinion. State will find a way to charge this man. This man needs to be in jail, point blank, period. That's all I really got to say, Brian.
Well, I will say,
go ahead.
I will say this. I will disagree with you on one thing. You did say that his ballroom won't be touching the surface. You might have this confused with maybe his balls touching the surface. I don't know. I'm sorry. That was a terrible joke.
Oh, God.
That was a terrible.
Bro. Very much so. I just finished eating, bro. I don't need to hear all that. But,
My apologies.
Anyway, I'm going to let you go on that. And I appreciate your show, man.
Thank you.
I might be coming to Vegas in the summer. Maybe we could have a beer or something.
Right on, my friend. I appreciate your support. Thanks for the phone call. I appreciate you.
Take care.
Terrible joke. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. I don't understand you people out there. Why do you want an investigation into peaceful protesters that went into a church? Oh my gosh, God forbid a church service was interrupted. Oh no. But yet you don't want an investigation, no investigation, into the shooting of Renee Good. What type of sick person are you? You think that way. You salivate at the mouth because Don Lemon, an African-American man that happens to be gay, you want him in jail, which, by the way, it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. Worst case scenario, Don Lemon could be cited for trespassing. But Officer Jonathan Ross, nothing to see here, no investigation. I'm wondering, you that are guys that are watching and listening, please make that make sense to me. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Who are we going to next year? Let's go to Jason. Jason's next. Hi, Jason.
Well, we're going to have a disagreement on that one because if you've seen it, he was harassing kids that are in the church and made them wig out. But all I can tell you is this. If he tried to do that in my church, God willing, would have been sleeping. All I got to tell you about that. Because we are non-violent, but if you come with violence, because that was violence. You don't come in a church service and do that. So I'm just going to let you know. If Don, I invite him to my church to come on and do that, because we have security.
Jason.
No. Let me finish. If Don Lemon came to my door and tried to do that, he'd be sleeping, and everybody else that's with him would all be sleeping with him. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay.
Now you can go ahead and expose.
Okay, so Jason, what exactly did Don Lemon do?
First of all, it's a service. That means it's sacrilege. It's number one, God. We're worshiping God, which means it's an intimate situation. That's like me coming in your room with your lady while you're having intimacy, and I walk in and go, "Oh, what are y'all doing? Oh, yeah, well, I don't want y'all to do that anymore."
But Jason, okay, but hold on, calm down for a second. All right, hold on, calm down for a second. So, Jason, Don Lemon wasn't protesting, though. I'm not talking about the protesters. We can get to the protesters in a moment. What Don Lemon did was he took out his cell phone in a church and he started recording. That's very different than protesting.
Okay, hold on, sir. Hold on. If you want to be 100% accurate, before he went in, he said, "This is what we're going to do." He pulled out the camera after he, just like Donald Trump on January 6th. He excited them to go in and do that.
No.
Before they went in,
all right, but hold on, Jason.
This is what we're going to do.
But Jason, hold on. January 6th, people lost their lives. 140 officers were beaten. We'll get to the protesters in a moment, but to my knowledge, nobody was physically assaulted and nobody was touched. So let's not conflate this to January 6th. That's number one. Number two, while the protesters may have broken the FACE Act, while the protesters might get arrested, and I don't think it's very smart to go into a religious sanctuary and protest and disrupt a service, I can tell you that Don Lemon was not among that group protesting. If he was, then I would to an extent agree with you. He took out his camera.
But you're forgetting one big thing, though. You're really forgetting this. As an African American church, after Dylan Roof, we are no longer sitting around unarmed. So there only been some people that might have lost their lives. That's what
I can tell you right now, Jason, I can tell you right now that if anybody took out a weapon and executed somebody, it would have been called murder because nobody's life was in jeopardy. When you're in there and you're protesting, it might be a violation. Hold on. Okay, well, Jason, I'm telling you that if somebody goes into your church and protests, even if they're breaking the law, in this case, maybe the FACE Act. Jason, hang on a second. If they go into your church and they protest, that doesn't give somebody the right to execute them just because you're breaking the law.
Just be knocked out. They would just be knocked out.
Well, if they're knocked out, then if you're knocking somebody out for protesting in your church, then you would be arrested for assault.
That's okay. I won't go to jail for protecting my house. That's like me protecting my bedroom. Period.
Okay, but number one, your church isn't your bedroom. In order for somebody to go into your bedroom, you have to hold on. You have to open. Jason. While it's a private business, it's not your home, and the doors were open. There was nobody at the front door that was giving you permission whether you should go in or not. The doors were open.
Well, we got security for that.
Okay, but I'm just telling you. Okay, but if somebody breaks into your home, then you would have the right to defend yourself. Nobody broke into the church. What they did was they protested. It could be a violation of the FACE Act. And while I don't think it comes anywhere near a violation of what Officer Jonathan Ross did or what ICE officers are doing on the streets, if in fact those people get arrested, then fine, let the chips fall where they may. But there are people on social media that are saying Don Lemon should be thrown in jail. I'm going to say this right now. It's not going to happen. Don Lemon is not going to go to jail. Worst case scenario, maybe he'll be cited for trespassing. That's the worst case scenario. As I repeat, he was not protesting. He was not chanting anything. He wasn't disrupting anything. He simply took out his phone and started recording. And while you might not like that, that doesn't give somebody the right to knock somebody out and physically assault somebody. And it certainly doesn't give anybody the right to use deadly force. Do you see where I'm going with that, Jason?
Not in my church. You're going to get knocked out. Just letting you know off top.
All right. Well, I can't condone any form of physical violence because somebody makes you feel uncomfortable or they might be breaking the law.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're not getting in. Before they even come to, by the time they come to the door, either they turn around or they get knocked out. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
How would you know if they're a protester? How would you know if they're, what do you mean at the front door? How would you know if they're a protester or not?
We have cameras. We have cameras all around our church.
Okay, but how would you know? Okay, but Jason, how would you know, as there a lot of those people that were protesting, as they were walking in, they looked like anybody else. That you wouldn't have known that for many of those people that they were protesters. What are you going to have? You're going to have.
We have a family. Our church. We know who's not. We know who's part of our church. Y'all come in when they would have came in. We would have already known. Everybody would have been on high alert, knowing that all right, these are people that we never seen before. So everybody be on high alert.
All right. Well, listen. It's okay to be on high alert, but I think it's wrong.
Somebody would have got knocked out.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I'm just giving you the law.
I'll go to jail for God.
I'm just.
I'll go to jail.
Okay. Well, I'm just, Jason. I'm just giving you what the law states. That's simply all that I'm saying here. I know, but Jason, hang on. Jason, hang on a second. I'm not taking a side here. I'm just telling you the facts. I'm just telling you the facts of what happened. Hold on, Jason, this is really important. Those people probably broke the FACE Act. Those people probably will be arrested, especially under the Trump administration. But I'm telling you, number one, this is a fact. Don Lemon wasn't protesting. At worst case scenario, he'll be cited for trespassing. I'm also telling you that just because somebody goes into your religious sanctuary and starts chanting something, that doesn't give you the right to assault them. I know that's what you said you would do, but that doesn't give somebody the right to put their hands on somebody else, Jason. That's the point I'm trying to make, and I guess that's where we have some sort of disagreement. I don't know why. You could say you would want to do that to somebody, but that doesn't mean you have the right to physically assault somebody because they're protesting on private. For example, what you're saying is this. Hold on, Jason. Jason, hang on 1 second, Jason. Jason, this is important. Jason, hang on. Just hear me out. Jason, just hear me out on this and then take the floor. What you're basically saying is if anybody protested a private business, for example, if somebody starts protesting in a restaurant or a mall or a shop, what you are saying is any citizen can go up to those protesters and physically assault them. Jason, that can't happen in society.
Okay, sir, you said I could have the floor. It's a totally different thing from a restaurant to a church.
They're both private property.
I don't have intimacy in the church. I have intimacy with my Father in heaven. When I go to that church, I get on my knees and give God all the glory. I have a personal relationship with my Father in heaven. So when I come there, I am having intimacy with my God. And so that's like me, I'm expressing this to you once again. That's like me going in your bedroom and taking your girl and smacking her up or having fun or just touching her.
Okay, so Jason, let me respond real quickly. Jason, hang on, calm down. Jason, okay, hold on. Jason, calm down for a second. Let me just respond to what you just said. So you have the right to that opinion that a religious sanctuary is very personal to you, but it doesn't change what the law says. If somebody goes into a private entity, whether it be a church or a restaurant, and they start illegally protesting and they're asked to leave, that still doesn't give you the right legally to put your hands on them. And the point I'm trying to make is because you keep talking about I understand that the church is an extremely personal thing to a lot of people, or any religious sanctuary. I understand that. But the difference between a church and your bedroom is if somebody knocks on your door and you don't want them in and you don't allow them to come in and they break in, then in most states you would have the right to use physical force. But you have to. But what they're doing in the church is they're walking in because it's open to the public, even though it's private property. There is also a fine line difference between your bedroom and a church.
Can I say this one thing then? Then if he was so brave to do that, why don't we go to a Muslim church and do that? I mean, a Muslim mosque. You know why? Because they would kill them all. Because that's the way.
And that would also be murder and against the law. Jason, I understand your passion, Jason, but the law applies equally, or should apply equally, to everyone. And Okay, but I'm just telling you factual stuff here. If somebody is protesting in your church, they will probably be arrested. They probably won't get jail time if they don't have a criminal record. They will probably get a couple months of probation. They will be cited. If you put your hands on somebody according to the law, it could be more serious and a more serious felony than anything that protester did. Why? Because if you cause somebody bodily harm, or God forbid somebody is severely injured or losing their life, you could go to jail for decades for something like that. So Jason, I want you to think about that before you take matters into your own hands. If in fact, and I hope it doesn't happen, something like that happens in your religious sanctuary. We can't be vigilantes and take matters into our own hands. If you decide to physically assault somebody on emotion, then you're doing something no better than what some of these ICE agents are doing. We all need to be able to check ourselves at the door. I don't think that anybody should be allowed to go into a religious sanctuary and protest. Yes, that is not a smart thing to do. It's probably breaking the FACE Act. Don Lemon did not do that. I want to be very clear on that. But I'm with you on that. I'm on your side. I don't think those people who protested were very intelligent in doing so. They shouldn't have done it. But that doesn't mean we have the right to physically assault people. Then you're no better than the January 6ers who beat cops with their own batons. Don't be like them, Jason. I have respect for you, and I think you're too smart for that. Don't let your emotions get in the way in what is wrong and what is right. Thank you for the phone call. 702-221-SAVE. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Nelson. Nelson is next up on PTL. Hello, Nelson.
Hello, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
I want to talk about the Renee shooting.
Yes.
I think this is the fault of both parties in this situation.
Okay. Explain.
But for various different reasons.
Okay, so explain. Why?
Well, for one, I think it was dumb. It was a dumb move for the cop to get in front of a car in the first place.
Agree.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think when cops train, I think they tell you not to get in front of a car.
That is correct.
You have to correct me on that if I'm wrong.
That is correct.
So I think he was definitely stupid for doing that. I think it was also kind of weird to me that he pulled out his phone. Yeah. I never really seen a cop doing that. I mean, maybe I could be wrong.
He broke a lot of protocols. He broke a lot of protocols, but I think this is the important statement that I would say to you, is that I think that members of law enforcement should be held to a higher standard than a citizen. You're right. Renee Good certainly made some mistakes. She didn't deserve what happened to her. And the officer, I don't believe, felt like his life was really ever in danger. I think he had an itchy trigger finger. So the problem I have here is, while as an American citizen, you could certainly make mistakes. Yes, of course, I wish she got out of the car. Yes, of course, I wish she wasn't in the middle of the street. Of course, she'd still be alive today. But we need to hold our officers to a higher standard. Before she decided to flee, she was at worst committing a misdemeanor. That should have been handled in a more respectful way and in a de-escalation way. They did the opposite of that. They charged at her vehicle. They pulled on the door. They said, "Get the F out." That is not a de-escalation tactic. Our officers need to be held to a higher extent of the law and to a higher standard, period. They were not. So while I wish Renee Good would have complied, there are people in society, I would say thousands of people in society every single day, that do far worse than her, and they are not executed.
Can I speak? I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wish she just would have complied with law enforcement. Of course, that doesn't justify her death. What happened to her was terrible. And I think that, when she was backing up, because her wheels were to the opposite side of the police officer, they were turning right, which means she turned her steering wheel.
Correct.
That basically indicates to me that, in fact, she wasn't trying to run him over, but rather she was attempting to flee the scene.
Correct.
Yes or no?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. 100%.
I believe.
100%. 100%. She was trying to flee the scene, which, by the way, I don't condone that either. I wish she got out of the car. It's not a smart move. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm not trying to make excuses for her, but you have her spouse that is saying, drive away, drive away. You have an officer that's saying, get the F out. They're trying to pull on the vehicle. I would imagine she was very scared, and I don't think she was trying to hurt anybody. She was just trying to get out of there. And we have to hold officers in law enforcement to a higher standard. And if you look at his behavior and you look at what he's done, even if we disagree fundamentally on whether you think this was a justified shooting or not, there needs to be an independent investigation. This is not a cut and dry case. We know that the Trump administration is not doing that. They decided in 1 hour to call her a domestic terrorist. There were no forensics. There was no autopsy. They didn't have the history of who this woman was, I would imagine. Kristi Noem didn't even know her name. And they're calling her a domestic terrorist. Meanwhile, this officer has been treated with the safety of our government, millions of dollars in donations. He'll never have to work again for the rest of his life. He's on vacation for the rest of his life for a shooting that we don't even know was justified or not. I don't think it was. I would assume you can't be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the situation is so, in my opinion, it's not clear cut. You know, it's not a super easily readable situation, and that's why I blame both parties. If I had to choose, I think this qualifies as murder, but especially I want to harken back on the dialogue that Renee Good and the officer had 25 seconds ago, where Renee said something along the lines of, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not mad at you." I don't know if it's
very, very important what you are bringing up. Do you know why?
Right.
Because the officer, Jonathan Ross, had the opportunity to interact with her at that time. He could have said something like, "Hello, I'm Officer Jonathan Ross with ICE. Here's what we're going to need you to do, man. We're either going to need you to leave the area right now, or we're going to arrest you, or you're going to need to come out of the car. We're going to need to talk to you." He could have de-escalated the situation. What did Jonathan Ross do? He did the opposite of what you're supposed to do. He tried to intimidate. He takes out his cell phone. He walks behind the vehicle. He walks in front of the vehicle. Everything against proper protocol and training for law enforcement, and nobody can deny that. Those are questions that need to be asked and answered in a full investigation, which we know we will never see now because of Donald Trump.
Right. You know, like I said, the exchange that they had, you know, "Oh, hello, officer, you know, I'm not mad at you." She said something along those lines. I can't quote it verbatim, but you know what I mean.
I'm not mad at you, bro. I'm not mad at you, dude. She said something along those lines. She was
she said something along those lines, which probably indicates to me that, you know, she didn't appear mad at him. She didn't have no bad intention towards him.
No.
Now, is it possible that she could have put on a fake facade or an act and, you know, lied? You know, and then
here's the thing.
Made an
Context also matters. You notice when we talk about George Floyd, everybody on the right wants to bring up his criminal past. Funny how they don't do that it's funny how they don't do that with Renee Good. You know why? Because she's never been arrested before in her life. She doesn't have a criminal record. So I don't believe
that is true.
so they don't want to talk about that.
Record.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about any of that stuff. It's very, very interesting. Again, Officer Jonathan Ross is a millionaire now. It's sick. This country is sick. With an officer-involved shooting that we don't know was justified, I don't personally believe that it was justified. And just because somebody's about to arrest you and you don't comply doesn't mean that they can use the type of force that can end your life. And that's exactly what Jonathan Ross did. Again, that's why there needs to be an independent investigation. And for all the right-wing evangelicals out there that want all these people that were in this church protesting to go to jail and throw away the key, they don't want an investigation into the Renee Good shooting because they're despicable. That's why. Because they are complicit and they are despicable. And I've had it with these people.
I got to say one other thing, and this is where you might slightly disagree with me. When I see the body cam footage from multiple different angles, of course, you know, when she's accelerating, when she's moving the car, to be fair, I know you might disagree with me on this, but it does seem like the car does make slight contact from the front side, hitting the officer.
It does make
a little bit.
It does make very minimal slight contact. And how do we know this for sure besides the video? He remains on his feet. He never falls to the ground. He keeps his cell phone in one hand and his weapon in the other. So if she ran him over, which are the words that our president used, which is, by the way, completely not true. barely grazed his body. So that's number one. Number two, if he had any injuries, because they claimed that he had internal bleeding, which is a joke, by the way. You could have internal bleeding by a slight bruise. But even if that was the case, they've provided no evidence, no hospital records, no pictures. Number three, if he was injured in any way, shape, or form, why was he walking so casually to the vehicle after the shooting? And why was he walking so casually to his car, never asked for medical help, didn't even look like he was limping or in any bit of pain at all, and then he leaves the scene within 1 minute, which is also against proper protocol. If he actually was injured and there was any real serious internal bleeding, then I would love someone to explain that to me. But again, goes back to full circle. That's why there needs to be a full investigation. I don't believe there was any internal bleeding. I don't believe he had any severe injuries to his body at all. In fact, the Daily Mail took pictures of him the next day in front of his home, moving boxes. He didn't look like he was any pain at all, and he looked absolutely just fine, and that is not the behavior of somebody that was just quote-unquote run over.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit hard to say because, I mean, sources from, Democratic channels say no, and Republican sources say, yes, he suffered internal bleeding. So
well,
really
it's very simple. It's very simple. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, it's very simple. Where's the evidence? Just because two unnamed sources say that somebody had internal bleeding doesn't mean they had internal bleeding. By the way, these are the same bozos that call her a domestic terrorist. If he actually had internal bleeding, there'd be medical records. There'd be a hospital that he went to. There'd be doctors that could answer questions. That would happen under an investigation, which they haven't had. I appreciate the call, my friend. Thank you so much. I think it's a good conversation. I think fundamentally we probably agree. Number to call if you want to be a part of the show, 702-221-7283. And again, that number, 702-221-SAVE. We're talking about, obviously, Renee Good and the fact that the administration has officially announced there is no real investigation into this. They've already made their mind and their decision up. Meanwhile, Donald Trump had a mumbling, bumbling press conference today where he sounded like the incoherent crypt keeper, orange crypt keeper that he is. 702-221-SAVE is the number to call. Let's go to Brian. Brian is next up on PTL. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Brian. How you doing, man?
Good. What's on your mind?
David, PTL family. I want to tell you a story, Brian, about me. Say, listening to Jason earlier, and Jason is my guy, but on this one, he was a little bit angry, but it made me think. So, this past weekend, Brian, I was just driving around. I was just running some errands, and I didn't realize that the brake light on the back of my car was out.
Yeah.
And I was in a very, very, very rich part of Dallas. Very, very rich. And anybody familiar with Dallas is Highland Park. I got pulled over. Now I had a little bit of bud in the car. I like to indulge. I had some bud. But the reason why I didn't flip out and I didn't get angry or start cussing laws out or doing all this old other mumbo jumbo stuff is because I already knew I was in the wrong. I had weed. I had a cigarillo. I wasn't smoking it, but it was there. And so when he came up to the window and he pulled me, I let the window down. He thanked me for my service. I guess he saw it from my insurance. I have USAA, and he thanked me for my military service. And he told me that there was a strong smell of marijuana emanating from the vehicle. So now you have, probable cause or something. Now, me knowing this, Brian, I know I don't have anything else in the car. I don't have a knife. I don't have a gun. I don't have anything other, any other illicit drugs. That's all I got. So I said, yes, sir. Fine. You can search the vehicle. And I'm not going to say anything else. If I had not done that, and I say, man, what you pulling me over for, man? And you always messing with me, yada, 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 all the other stuff. Well, what happened is I wouldn't have given him consent to search my vehicle. He would have put me in handcuffs. He would have said this: you're not under arrest. You're just being detained. While my search dog and my sergeant comes and we can search your vehicle. And then, if we would have found all that, then, although it is a misdemeanor here in Texas, I still would have went to jail. It's strategic. We have to know when to fight these battles and when to just sit down and shut up.
Well, listen, here's what I will say to that, Brian. And by the way, I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate your call. Yes, in a perfect world, I wish everybody would comply. Obviously, if Renee Good had complied, and she got out of the vehicle, she would probably still be alive today. But as I'm sure you would agree with me, Brian, that doesn't give people the right to use deadly force. And that's exactly what took place. Yes, I wish people would comply. I tell people that all the time. But a lot of people have different reasons. I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but people have a lot of different reasons why they don't comply. Some instances, they're extremely scared and they think there's no other way than to not comply. Now, I wish that wasn't the case. There needs to be more of a trust between citizens and law enforcement, particularly in this case, ICE. But Brian, I'm glad you complied. And I'm sure you got out of there just fine. And I'm glad you said, hey, go ahead and search my vehicle. And it probably worked to your benefit, right? Because you didn't do anything wrong. So I appreciate that story, and I appreciate your call, Brian. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. So I'm just reading Trump's appearance in the White House press briefing room today began at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and ended at 3:38 p.m. Eastern Time. 104 minutes this press conference was. It was quite the sight. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Bob. Bob is next up on PTL. Hello, Bob.
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
Good. What's on your mind?
I didn't get to listen to the program today, but I was listening to Price is Right, and she, his face was all over the TV with the mug shots and stuff. I can't stand the guy. I hope he gets arrested in Switzerland for war crimes. And they need to freeze all his assets and give it back to the government.
I'm sorry, who are you referring to?
Donald Trump.
Oh, okay, you're talking about him. You hope he gets arrested in Switzerland. Okay, that's funny. Yeah. So I was watching a little bit of the press conference. Obviously, I'm on the air. We played parts of the press conference today where he's just mumbling and bumbling and lying about everything and blaming Joe Biden for all of the problems that the America is facing. This was a Donald Trump that looked extremely tired. It was a Donald Trump who was, again, going through these pages in this book, acting like the madman that he is. It was very, I don't know, it's just very troubling. Every time this guy talks, it's troubling. But even today in the Oval Office, or I'm sorry, in the White House press briefing room, it was extremely troubling. Obviously, I do believe he belongs in jail. I do believe he's a fascist dictator. I'm saying that over and over again now.
Right. So someone needs to step up. Enough's enough. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's only so much. I mean, what can Democrats do now? I mean, he's got 3 more years in office. Even if they have a great midterm elections, what is an impeachment really going to do in the grand scheme of things, right?
Maybe the Republicans can grow a spine.
Impossible. Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Delusions of grandeur, my friend. It's not going to happen. The only Republicans that are speaking out against Trump are the ones that aren't running for re-election. So what does that tell you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the call, my friend. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Again, 702-221-SAVE is the number to call. Let's go to Ryan. Ryan is next up on PTL. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Brian. How are you doing?
Good, Ryan. What's on your mind today?
I think that Donald J. Trump just flunked first grade. I think he just flunked first grade. If you ever played a smart in a 5th grader, I don't think you'll win. I think you'll lose.
Well, Ryan, in regards to first grade, Donald Trump's transcripts from school have never been released. He doesn't release anything. He doesn't release his medical records. He doesn't release his tax returns. He doesn't release his grades. Donald Trump is an extremely stupid person, Ryan. He's a very ignorant man.
I don't think he ever will release them. I don't think he will.
No, I agree, Ryan. I don't think they will either. Just like he won't be releasing the Epstein files. So I completely, 100% agree with you, Ryan. I do appreciate the call. Have a good rest of your day. 702-221-SAVE is the number to call. That's 221-7283. Let's go to Larry. Larry is next. Hey, Larry, what's up?
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Good.
In Vegas. Hey, this guy, our leader, he's so stupid he doesn't even know where the Nobel Prize comes from.
That's true.
I mean, he's blaming Denmark.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, it's from Norway, Oslo. Okay, I mean, I'll just leave it on that. But keep up the good work. I know Tillis, the senator, like you said, he's not running again. But it's the amateur hour. The amateur hour.
It really is.
Good work.
It really is. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you. Thank you for the call.
Right on.
We are going to go, by the way, to the YouTube Super Chat because I have a lot of Super Chats that I have some chats that I have to get to. So I'll read one right now, if I may, on my Obama phone. It's a little bit slow, ladies and gentlemen, but I'll get to it. I'll get to it right now. And by the way, your questions or comments could be read on the YouTube Super Chat. Shelly, thank you for your support. Shelly says, I'm so disillusioned right now. I'm on pins and needles all the time and don't know what to do. Thanks for your help to try and keep me sane. Well, thank you, Shelly, for supporting this show. I appreciate you. How do you think I feel every day? Listen, these are very tumultuous and dangerous times that we are living in right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for you. And it's troubling when I have conversations with people and they think a 1-hour investigation into what I would consider the murder of Renee Good and a 1-hour investigation is sufficient. I just don't see it. I don't see how people can think like that. I've given you my solutions on what I think Governor Walz should do. I've given you my solutions on what I think the mayor should do. It doesn't mean that the Trump administration is going to work with them because I don't think they will. But if I'm Governor Walz right now, I call up Donald Trump. I demand to speak to Kristi Noem and have an in-person meeting in D.C. And what I tell them is, okay, you guys keep saying on TV network interviews that you want access to our jails to deport violent criminals. Okay. We will give you access to all of our jails in the state of Minnesota to deport people that are undocumented, that are violent criminals, that are already behind bars. We will give you that access. In return, get your officers off the streets and stop terrorizing people. I think that's where the conversation needs to start because I don't see this getting any better. And that's my concern. That's my frustration. And that's what I'm worried about. I think this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I don't know where we're going to be a week from now. I don't know where we're going to be a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. It's very simple. I want protesters to protest peacefully, and there's no question that most of them are. I want ICE agents to stop breaking down doors without warrants. I want ICE officers to stop breaking those Fourth Amendment rights of individuals and asking them for ID for no reason and asking them for their papers for no reason. You have to have reasonable and articulable suspicion that somebody has committed a crime before you ask for their papers or ID. I want ICE agents across this country to stop terrorizing our communities. I understand that being in law enforcement is a very difficult job. I understand that it's a high-stress job. But I also understand that you take an oath to the Constitution. I also understand that we are not living in Nazi Germany. It's 2025. And if you've lived in this country for decades, you pay your taxes, you've never been arrested for a violent crime in your life, and you don't have the proper paperwork, I don't want you being treated like an animal. I don't want you separated from their family. There has to be some sort of legitimate pathway to citizenship. And I've been saying this a lot lately, particularly over the course of the last year. I don't recognize the country that I live in anymore. Attacks on our First Amendment rights, attacks on our Fourth Amendment rights, disruptions of free and fair elections, people being murdered on the streets by ICE agents with no investigations, nonviolent criminals that don't have the proper paperwork being sent to El Salvador prisons, and the hatred and the bigotry of those that are in Washington, D.C., particularly in the Trump administration, and the cowards that have R next to their names. It has to stop. It has to stop now. Because once we allow this type of dictatorship and this type of behavior in Minneapolis, trust me when I say it's going to be happening in your backyard very, very soon. Some of it already is. And this is all really bad for the country, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. There are no winners here. This is very bad for the country. And unless you're a tech billionaire or a Donald Trump donor, this is bad for everybody. And we need to come together as Americans, if in fact that's even possible anymore, and call this stuff out. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you support what we do here and you enjoy Pushing the Limits, I ask you to do several different things. Either of them are helpful. Subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show if you haven't already. Give me that thumbs up. Give me the comments. Give me the likes. Interaction always helps us. If you haven't already, I think tonight we're going to be surpassing 60,000 subscribers on Facebook. We just started being active on there 2 months ago. It's the Pushing the Limits. I think it's at PTL Radio Show, but Pushing the Limits Facebook page. It's the fan page. Please subscribe there and be interactive on there as well. And then the last thing you can do for me, besides word of mouth, of course, go to my website, which is pushingthelimits.live. I appreciate everybody with the YouTube Super Chats, but if you go to pushingthelimits.live, and we just passed 60,000 subscribers, by the way, as Numchuck just informed me, my producer, which is awesome, on Facebook. If you go to pushingthelimits.live, you'll see a little icon there, a little button that you could press right on the homepage there. It says donate. Doesn't matter what it is, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can afford. We so greatly appreciate it. A once-a-month donation, a one-time donation, whatever you can afford. We appreciate your support, and you are supporting independent media to keep the lights on. So pushingthelimits.live is where you can make those donations, and I appreciate all of you very much. Thank you to all of you in the YouTube Super Chat. The comments are always phenomenal, so I appreciate you guys there as well. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Leonard Cardinal going to be joining me in studio tomorrow as well. Have a great day, everybody.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more.